On today's episode of Locked On Angels, we've got your recap of yesterday's game against the Rays. The Halos offense and some umpiring did them in. We're going to take a closer look at Jose Soriano, the starter, and what the Halos need to do with Jo Adell. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. The eBay Guarantee Fit is only available to U.S. customers.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
We're in our third season here at Locked On Angels, and we're happy to be talking Angels baseball Monday through Friday, every single weekday here with you. On today's show, we're going to recap yesterday's game. We're going to talk about Jose Soriano's start, how he did in that one, and give you a little in defense of Jo Adell after yesterday's miscue, which we will get to in this recap. Mike, the Angels fell 4-2 to the Rays yesterday afternoon. It was a getaway game, the end of the series, and unfortunately the Halos have dropped 3 series while winning and sweeping the Marlins series. That's what's keeping them at 6-6 at 500 right now. So fortunately, they did get 3 wins there, but this is the third series they've dropped so far this season, Mike.
Yeah, and they had a chance in this game, John. They had a chance to win the game, and they had a chance to win the series, but too many missed chances and a lot of miscues. Let me start with a key moment in the game. So Jose Soriano had a start. They moved Griffin Canning back. He's going to pitch against the Red Sox, and he starts this game with 3 ground ball singles. Now, you talk about being dinky dude. Listen to these expected batting averages of each of these ground ball singles. So there was a batting average of 230 on the first one, 440 on the second one. So that one is a
that was
batting
off,
average.
That
right?
was off the foot too, and it squirted away. So yeah.
And then the third was 270. So these were 3 hits that weren't hit really, really hard, except for that one that was the middle one that went off the foot. And it just was a bad omen for the game in that first inning, right? And they got into some trouble. But then, John, I don't know why Matt Thaiss does this to me, but he started off last year struggling at catcher, and then I go to a game where he hits a game-tying home run, and you texted me and made fun of me. He really struggled in this game, and I know it wasn't all his fault, but a wild pitch bounces off of Thaiss. He can't find it. He's spinning, and he's spinning, and he's spinning. And then Soriano comes to cover the bag. He's not pointing.
No, he's not
yelling.
Yeah.
He's not even talking, right? And so he doesn't help him find it. They're both just kind of standing there, and 2 runs come in and score. And
unacceptable.
It was terrible. It's terrible baseball, and it's terrible teamwork in that moment. And to have somebody like Soriano on the mound, who's got some really wicked stuff, and not have a Logan O'Hoppe behind there, your main catcher, I think is not helping Soriano, because I want somebody that I'm going to be building the franchise around over the next few years behind the plate, and then maybe having Thaiss play on a different day. Thaiss just looked overmatched, and Soriano didn't look confident throwing to him yesterday.
Yeah, Isaac Paredes hit a sac fly at that point. It made it 3-0. Soriano gave up a homer in the second. So his final line score, Mike, 4 innings pitched, 6 hits, 4 earnings, 6 Ks, 1 home run, 72 pitches. Now, we had heard that 60 was probably his limit prior to the game, so he did go a little bit beyond that. And we'll talk more in depth about his start in segment 2, but let's continue our recap of yesterday's game. In the bottom of the first, Luis Rengifo took ball 4.
Right.
But old friend, pal, friend of the Angels, Doug Eddings, was behind the plate.
Was it his mechanics this time? The strike or the out? Or remember that whole discussion in 05?
Yes.
It was, well, that's my mechanics. And so I said he was a strike, but I didn't say he was out. No, you've been doing that the whole game, stupid.
19 years later, he still has it out for the Angels. The Angels walked the bases loaded, Mike. And in that moment, Miguel Sano struck out swinging and Brandon Drury struck out swinging. Really, it could have been 3-1 at that point had Rengifo's walk counted. But that sinker to Rengifo was way, way inside. And so it was just ridiculous that he was rung up on that one. So it would have been bases loaded and then Ward took a walk, and then that would have been the difference. Maybe Ward swings it with the bases loaded. That could have also been the difference. But good news in this one, the Angels saw a ton of pitches, Mike. They made Zach Little work. 99 pitches across 4.1 innings for the Rays starter. 36 pitches in that first inning, 22 in the second. There were 9 pitch at bats from Rengifo. He must have been listening to the show. And Moniak had a 9 pitch at bat in the first inning. 8 pitch at bat from Jo Adell, a 9 pitch at bat from Zach Neto in the second. So some really good ABs there, even though it didn't result in a lot, but they made him work. They just didn't capitalize on it. And so the very little scoring that they did was Matt Thaiss doubling in the fourth, Zach Neto driving him in with a single. He looked much better today, especially working that 9-pitch AB and also hitting the ball decently hard. So it didn't seem like Neto was struggling. I think he benefited from that day off he received on Tuesday night. Jo Adell came in, hit an opposite field home run, 108.1 miles per hour off the bat. Speaking of Adell, Mike, let's talk about the gaff that he had in yesterday's game.
Yeah, so it was a day game for Adell, hitting a home run. Like, it's perfect weather for him. However, the 8th inning, Adell singles with 2 outs. Matt Thaiss is up. He's the tying run. Adell still second base, standing.
Yeah, easy swipe. Easy
swipe. And then, for some reason, he runs past the bag. Now, I appreciated your tweet on the Super Halo Brothers page. It's when you accidentally hit the go to the next bag button on the show, right? And you round the base, and you're like, no, go back. Yeah, that's really what it felt like. And it felt like he had a moment where he just, like, his brain wasn't connecting with what his feet were doing. So he runs and then leaves the bag.
Yeah.
Like you were there. You could have stayed there. It didn't look like he lost his balance, John. It just looked like he just kept going, like he was running through first base.
It felt like maybe he thought there was a foul ball because it was such a easy swipe. Yeah. I don't know, because usually there's a foul ball when you're running into second base standing up, right?
Right.
But he definitely, it wasn't a foul ball, and it was a complete play. And so the fact is that he didn't slide into there. And I think that's the biggest thing that is upsetting. And so that was the big gap. But either way, it kind of killed a potential moment for the Angels.
It did. And it was one of those moments, and we'll talk about it later, but it was one of those moments where you're like, oh, Joe, like, you're finally in there and you just hit a home run, like, like, and then this happened.
And it was an opposite field home run, which is what Ron Washington and Johnny Washington have been preaching to Jo Adell. Like, hey, dude, you don't have to pull the ball so hard all the time. If you just naturally swing it the other way, you're strong enough to hit it off the wall. Yeah. And in a day game yesterday, to hit it out. And that's exactly what he did. So that was the frustrating thing, was he just has this great moment and he's playing great center field. Yeah. And then he has this gaff, which everybody piles on. And so anytime he, scratches his butt, people are like, oh, did you see that? Did you see that?
Yeah. The truth is that some of it, I wouldn't say is deserved, but some of it is, when you see the mistakes and we're in a highlight world, it can be difficult for people to not see anything else, right? So we'll talk about it in a little bit. So the bullpen comes in after Soriano was done. Adam Yelling-Simber came in, did really well. Luis Garcia, Matt Moore for 2 innings, which I was really grateful for. Thought maybe he should have come in the game before and helped that game instead of just pitching 2 in this one, but I'm not the manager. And then Carlos Estevez comes in the 9th, and they kept the Rays from scoring, did really well, and the Angels just needed some offense but couldn't do it. Even Luis Garcia, dare I say, looked better in this one. Yeah. No hits, no walks, and a K. We talked about how the middle relief wasn't any relief on yesterday's episode. and they're going to have to be relief this weekend against the Sox. And so to see him maybe turn a corner, at least in this game, was really good news, right?
Yeah, and then let me speak on Doug Eddings for a minute, because
Please.
our old pal was behind the plate. Again, he ruined Rengifo's walk in the first. By the 9th inning, he just decided he wanted to go home.
Yeah, that was awful. That was awful.
The strike 3 call to Thaiss was not a strike.
Yeah.
Wash got mad, started yelling from him at the dugout. The very next pitch to Neto was a slider called for a strike that was way inside. So a little revenge from Doug Eddings for Wash yelling at him. And then another called strike to Mickey Moniak to start his at bat. And then he walks away from him after the game, and Bill Miller intercepts Washington. And so this is what Wash had to say after the game. He said, I do think in that 9th inning, he must have had a flight that he was missing. That's exactly the way he called the game. He called the game like he had somewhere to go. And again, he basically ran away from Ron Washington as this game was over, and Ron was ready to give him the business. Right.
You know, I'm really glad that these MLB umpires like Doug Eddings and Angel Hernandez are so mature.
Stevie Buckner.
And they recognize their mistakes. Like, I don't know who it was, John, that recognized his mistake the other night. But one of the umps called a strike. It was actually a ball. And then the play, it didn't end up impacting the at bat. But then afterwards, he walked by that batter and he said, my bad. And I appreciated that. I really appreciated it, which is why I love what they're doing in the minors, where if it is a ball or a strike and you want to contest it, you just tap your helmet, you turn around, you look up at the score, they run it, and they're like, oh no, it's a ball. Like that seems so simple to me, especially when you have
the technology. You have it.
I'm talking about the umpires. You have these vengeful umpires, or these arrogant umpires with all of this bravado that they shouldn't have. It's all in their bellies. And so these guys are ridiculous, right? And so the fact that you can't correct them, I mean, if you're any kind of commissioner, you're going, I'm sorry, you're out for a couple of games until you can figure that out. The fact that you're calling strikes as revenge, or you're calling strikes and it's outside, or it's a ball and it's in, like, this is ridiculous. And these umps need to get it together.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen every single day. The Angels are playing the Red Sox 4:10 Pacific time on Friday, right, Mike? They're starting that series on Friday.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So they got a long road trip ahead of them. It's the Red Sox, the Rays, and then the Reds. Hey, 3 R's in a row. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels. Coming up,
ADHD is getting the best of him.
That's right. Coming up on Locked On Angels, let's talk about Soriano and Adell and what the Angels should be doing with these two players. We'll talk about all of that coming right up.
Hey, I want to take a moment to talk to you about Policy Genius. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. Saves you time and saves you money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting right now. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage, which is fantastic, especially for those of you that have families and maybe only have one breadwinner in the family. It's really important. Truth is, your work life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for you or your family's needs. And even worse, it may not come with you if you leave the job that you're in. You could be paying into it, and then when you leave, you don't have it anymore. So this is why you need the experts at Policy Genius. Easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks, and you can find some of the lowest prices and some of the best policies. And their team, they're award-winning agents. That's what's great about Policy Genius. They're going to walk you through the process step by step. And here's what I love, Johnny, the best part. They're committed to giving you an unbiased direction, unbiased advice with the goal of helping you. They don't have an incentive to recommend one insurer over the other, so you can trust their guidance. With thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs, you need to check out Policy Genius. Check life insurance off of your list in no time with Policy Genius. So here's what you need to do. Go to policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB. That way they know you came from Locked On Angels. You're going to click the link in the description if you don't want to type that in. So we're going to have it in the description for you as well. And you can get free life insurance quotes and see how much you can start saving and taking care of your family. Once again, policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB.
And today's show is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Mike, the other day, I was driving down my neighborhood street and somebody nearly ran me off the road. And so I had to kind of dodge out of the way, and the dumpsters were in the street for trash day, and my side view mirror clipped the dumpster.
Oh, no.
So I didn't think anything of it. It just kind of tucked it in, and then I went on my business. Well, when I parked where I was going, I looked at the back of my mirror, and the whole back panel was gone. So fortunately, I had to drive back to my neighborhood. I found the panel, was able to put it back. The reason I bring this up is because if I had not found that panel, I would have immediately gone to eBay Motors. Because passion, drive, and patience, that's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your car, truck, or SUV alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and maybe rear view mirror, side view mirror panels. You might need one of those if you're like me.
Right.
Whether you're into speed or power or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your auto, you'll find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts that you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your car, truck, or SUV or side view mirror alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Motors, eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Every dayers, it's time to make the switch from your regular sports viewing and check out Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Sports Today is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every single day to bring you the biggest stories in sports. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV Channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
And speaking of your team every day, the Angels are playing the Red Sox, 4:10 Pacific time on Friday. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels. Mike, let's get into Jose Soriano's first start of his career at the major league level. This is something that the Angels have been working on. They want to develop Jose Soriano into a starter. So let's break it down.
So he pitched 4 innings, 6 hits, gave up 4 earned runs, 6 Ks, 1 home run, 72 pitches, as you mentioned in the first segment. Had about a 60-pitch limit. I'm glad that they let him go over that. And really, without some of the mistakes, he probably could have gone 5 with 72, because there were some moments where it was just kind of like a circus out there. So 33 curveballs, 7 whiffs, 8 called strikes, 19 four-seam fastballs, 1 whiff on the fastball, and 3 called strikes. 19 sinkers, no whiffs, 6 called strikes, and he threw 1 splitter. John, he did hit 100 miles an hour with the 4-seam fastball.
Now, the big if here, if there hadn't been that wild pitch that Thaiss couldn't get to and didn't ballerina spin around home plate, it could have been a different kind of game, because you'd think that with Soriano loading the bases in that first inning, perhaps maybe only 1 run comes across, maybe 2 runs come across, but it seemed like he had the opportunity to get out of it had that wild pitch not occurred and they couldn't find it and they didn't talk to each other. Then he gave up that solo shot in the second inning. Really, Mike, this could have been a 2-2 ball game. And we know that's not what happened. We know that the reality is that the Angels lost this game. But I bring that up because I feel like the line score looks worse than the game actually was. And again, if you have somebody competent back there and those guys are communicating with each other on where the ball is, maybe only one of those runs comes across. Maybe that's what happens, but it was just an unfortunate situation and doesn't reflect very well on Soriano's line. I think that he ended up pitching better than what the 4 earned runs suggest, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, Johnny, let's talk a little bit about his spin on his pitches, not spin in the story. Yesterday, the spin of his curveball was up to 176 revolutions per minute over his average. The spin on his 4-seam fastball was up 38 revolutions per minute over average, and the spin on his sinker up 53 revolutions per minute on his average. So why do we bring this up? Well, the spin of his pitches is going to be a big factor in deciding who catches him, right?
Absolutely.
Right? So we've brought this up before in the show, but based off of last year, Matt Thaiss is the better defensive catcher right now between him and Ohapi. I know I complained in the first segment about not having Ohapi in there, but there are some metrics that say that Thaiss should be in there over Ohapi, right?
From last year,
Yes.
the out of the two, but we know that Ohapi is doing a lot to improve his defense this year coming into the season. So yeah, big question there is who's going to be the better guy to receive pitches from Jose Soriano. But the thing about that is, Mike, the spin is a huge factor for who's behind the dish, because that sinker that he threw that hit the dirt, it bounced and ricocheted off Matt Thaiss. That's what cost the Angels 2 runs. And so if Soriano is going to be a starter, the Angels really are going to have to trust who's behind the dish that night, because with the spin on his pitches, you don't know what's going to happen if a pitch hits the dirt. You don't know what's going to happen if you set up your glove on the right side and you have to suddenly move to the left. Like, you have to be ready behind the dish. And the same thing goes for the infield, right, Mike?
Yeah, same thing for the infield. And with all of the spin on his pitches, you have to consider how the bat is going to come off the ball. And to steal your word, lots of dinky-do potential, right, with that kind of spin.
Right.
And we saw a bit of that in that first inning with the expected batting averages, except for one being kind of low. So it means that the ball is going to come off the bat and it's going to have all sort of weird angles, right? And this could lead to weird bounces or bad hops. And the infield is going to have to be ready for that as well, which is important for Soriano to know as well, to throw strikes and to make sure that the defense behind him, they're on their toes and they're ready to go, and he's not just missing. And what's great about Soriano is he doesn't seem like a guy who wastes a lot of pitches. He seems like a guy who's really tunneling for strike 3, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, that can also lead to some control issues, and I think we saw a bit of that in yesterday's game, where you're not sure how many revolutions you're going to put on that sinker, that curveball, or that spin on your fastball, because you don't know where that thing is going to end up sometimes. And so you have to have really solid command of your pitches if you have a lot of spin on the way you throw it. Now, how was this outing yesterday different from that phenomenal 3-inning stretch that he had in Baltimore? Here's something I noticed that was really interesting to me, Mike. He relied way more on his curveball yesterday. Again, let me go back to the numbers that you shared at the beginning. 33 curveballs over 19 four-seam fastballs and 19 sinkers in this one. That's a huge difference. And so to me, that curveball tells me that he didn't have a feel for his fastball or his sinker. It feels like after he got hit around, and I kind of went back and looked at the sequencing from the beginning of the game, you started to see him throw that curveball more and more and more. So it felt like perhaps he just didn't have a feel for what he wanted to throw, and he felt safe with the curveball. Also, something of note, the curve that he's thrown in the previous 2 games before yesterday were classified as knuckle curves, according to StatCast. But yesterday, they were classified as just curveball. So I'm not sure if that's going to change. I don't know if they'll reclassify that, but I thought that was also interesting to note. But again, he relied way more on his curveball yesterday, much more than he did in that phenomenal 3 outings against Baltimore. And even that second time he came out and gave up the lead last Friday and everything, didn't throw the curveball as much as he did in yesterday's game. So question here, Mike.
Yeah.
Do we let Soriano continue to develop at the major league level, where he's kind of this in-between spot start guy, but also a long reliever out of the pen when they need to hold the lead? Or should he be getting regular starts, perhaps in AA, perhaps in AAA? What do you say?
I see the benefit of being in the minors and getting regular starts. I think right now I would keep him in the majors for a couple of reasons. One, Chase Silseth will be out for a bit. We got good news that the MRI didn't show any damage, so he's not going to have surgery, but they are going to keep him out for a bit. So they need a 5th starter. And I think having Soriano in that role is a really good role for him to have so that he can develop. I mean, he'll probably go to AAA or even AA and dominate. And so I think you need to find out what kind of pitcher he is. And isn't this the year to develop? I mean, the Angels, honestly, are they going to go anywhere this year? And so I think you got to have somebody with Soriano's abilities at the major league level so he can figure some things out.
I was going to say, they might go somewhere this season because the Astros are losing to the Royals 11-2. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe there's a chance in the AL West. No, you're right. Development, this is the year to do it. And that kind of goes into our next conversation about Jo Adell, which we'll get to here in just a minute.
This is a fun time of year for sports because there's a lot happening, right? Baseball and NBA and NHL. We just got done with the tournament. Everything's taking place right now. And so if you'd like to get involved in a more specific way, not just cheer for your favorite team or check out your favorite team, if you want to make a bet, you can with FanDuel, and that's today's sponsor of Locked On Angels. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, whether you win or you lose. So they're going to give that to you, and they just are going to gift it, and you're running away with their money, which is great. So you can bet on everything from slap shots to, that's hockey, home runs, that's baseball, to slam dunks, that's NBA, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. It's not like Facebook. FanDuel is much safer. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook.
Mike, yesterday's Jo Adell mishap on the stolen base attempt had a lot of upset people, a lot of responses. People were upset, especially on social media. Now, to remind everybody, he went to steal second and essentially could have stolen it standing up, but he overran the bag, got tagged out in the middle of what, might have been a little bit of a rally, but it ended the inning. At that point of the game, Matt Thaiss was 2 for 2 with a double, so perhaps fans were hoping that a single could drive in Jo Adell, which we all know it could from second base because he's got some wheels. But unfortunately, he overran that bag. Now, Ron Washington, after the game, actually addressed this in the press conference. Here's what he had to say. It's obvious he overran the bag. We're down 4-2 right there in the 8th inning. If you're going to decide to get that bag, you got to get that bag.
I love that.
I don't care what kind of jump you got to get that bag simply because of the situation of the game. Mm-hmm. It is a teaching moment, hopefully, that will never happen again, because when you actually look at it, it was embarrassing to all of us. I know Jo didn't mean it in that manner, but it was a teaching moment for all of us.
Johnny, here's what I loved about what Wash said there. It wasn't that's tough, and Joe's a great player, and it was a very honest, like, bro, if you're gonna do that, you need to get it. Yeah. And you got the bag and you overran it. Right. I need you to be a baseball player, not a little league player in that moment. I mean, I love that Wash, I know that he said that to Jo too. It wasn't like he used the media to communicate that. Right. I know he said that to him in the dugout, and I'm sure Jo received that because Jo seems like a pretty humble guy and receptive to coaching.
Yeah. So of course, Mike, there were a lot of opinions on social media.
Yes.
Some of the ones I saw, I can't repeat because mom watches the show, but I will break them down for you. He needs to be sent down. By the way, he can't because he's out of options.
Yeah.
He needs to be cut from the team. He makes too many mental errors. He's a quad A player. Another mistake, just like his outfield issues. And then my favorite was, people want him in this lineup every day. Really? And it felt like they were talking to you and me.
Yeah. So just for clarity, Jo can't be sent down.
Right.
So that's not going to happen. He is an Angel until 2027, arbitration years until 2027.
So he's not getting cut.
Right. He's not going to get cut. He's a young guy with a lot of years ahead of him. He's what everybody wants. Right. Yeah. And I think bringing up the defensive issues that he's had from 2020 and 2022, like he is a different player, but it's, again, I mentioned this first segment, we're in a highlight world. And so we're only seeing the lowlights of Jo Adell. So it feels like he's making all of these errors all of the time.
Right.
When in reality, it's not as consistent as everybody's making it out to be. It's frustrating, but it's not as consistent as everybody is saying that it is.
I seem to remember a certain 2-time National League MVP running past second base in a playoff game, and then the out was caught in the outfield, and he didn't get back to. Oh, Bryce Harper for the Phillies. I seem to remember him having a little base running issue. So it's not beyond comprehension that somebody is going to make a mistake like this. Now, yesterday's mistake, of course, was silly. And I said so on our post game. I said, I don't know what he was actually thinking in that moment, other than, was it a foul ball? But that just brings up the fact that you've got to have situational awareness. You have to be constantly knowing what's going on. I saw some people say, well, him not sliding was arrogant. Him not sliding in was foolish. And I mean, it was a straight steal, and it almost looked like a defensive indifference at that point. And so he was just unaware that the ball was even being thrown. It's not like the crowd was super loud, because they were loud, but it was a day game and it's hot outside. And so I don't know where the distraction came from at that point.
I think what's frustrating for fans, and I can put us in that category too. I like Jo Adell. I want to see him play all the time. I know you're going to mention something in just a second, but his issue isn't his physical ability. His issue is right between, the eyes, right? It's the brain issue. It's the awareness issue. And that's what's frustrating, because I want to see if he could get that down, the dude's going to be a really excellent player.
And I think he's doing better with that kind of stuff. I think that year in AAA last year, for the most part, was really good for him. I mean, people like to bring up the outfield play. The outfield play has been great. I mean,
he's not been bad.
People bring up the fact that he didn't throw home, or he tried to throw home in 2022, and Rendon said, no, throw it to first. And so he threw it between first and home because he was in the middle. Like, people bring that stuff up. I'm like, that was April of 2022. What are you bringing that up for? It's 2024 now. But here's some things I think that we should consider. Isn't this all the more reason to play Jo Adell more? Listen to this, Mike. Marcus Semien played all 162 games last year for the Texas Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
And in that year, he had 753 plate appearances last year. Jo Adell, counting yesterday, has had 595 major league plate appearances across 5 seasons.
Right.
So if you're ready to cut ties, consider that the guy has not even had a full year's worth of plate appearances in his major league career.
Yeah. So I think when we talk about no expectations this year, I really think that a part of the no expectations vision that you and I have thrown out there is that you got to play your number one pick in Jo Adell. If he had consistent playing time, he can have consistent playing time over the likes of like a Miguel Sano and an Aaron Hicks, who aren't going to be here next year. And that's why I don't think that you send him down, because you can't. But also, like, this is the opportunity for him to get some at-bats and to be the guy that he has the chance to be. You have arbitration years left with this guy. And so at worst case scenario, he has a really bad year, and then you just have him as a fourth outfielder or something like that next year, or you trade him, or you
know what you have.
Package him. Yeah, right?
Exactly.
And that's the thing. The Angels, I don't think that they know what they have with him, and it doesn't seem like, as far as the season is 12 games in right now, it doesn't seem like they have much trust in putting him out there regularly.
Well, and people say, well, he's had plenty of chances. No. 595 major league plate appearances is less than a year's worth of plate appearances. If you're going to play all 162. Let's consider that he also was one of the 2 RBIs that the Angels had in that game yesterday. And let's also consider that he went opposite field because his coaches were telling him to do so. They've been talking to him and he listened. We also need to consider that he would have had the most stolen bases on the team if he hadn't overran it, because he would have had 3, Mike. And so he's actually doing what the coaches are telling him to do. And also, shouldn't we consider Matt Thaiss and Jose Soriano playing ring around the, shouldn't we be mad at them playing ring around the rosy earlier in the game? I mean, look, it sucked, but Wash said it's a learning experience. I bet you Adell won't do that again. And this is the team. This is the no expectations team. This stuff is going to happen with guys who haven't had a full year's worth of playing time ever in their career. So I just hope that at the end of the day, let's stop overreacting to everything Jo Adell does and highlight the good stuff that he's actually doing. Literally had a home run the opposite way, doing what the coaches are telling him to do. But this is the thing that's going to grab headline news. That's spin right there.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels play the Red Sox on Friday at 4:10 Pacific time, and you can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, get into the comments section, find today's episode, and be part of the conversation. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
It's Fan Mail Friday, so get your questions in. You can tweet at us, you can message us, you can comment below. We would love to respond to your questions and your thoughts on Fan Mail Friday tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that. We hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here on Friday.
Jo Adell has 3 years of arbitration left.
Yeah.
He's 24. Young outfielder, athletic, a lot of power. Keep him.